Good afternoon to everybody. Report on the local group's contributions. We have overall received from Foundation's local groups 8 documents, 4 from Italian chapters and 4 from non-Italian chapters. All papers are interesting, all provide substantial food for thought, and all together reveal the great effort made by local groups for this General Assembly. The underlying event, which has deeply affected the reflection of all of us and is in the background of all the contribution we have received, is of course the pandemic, the outbreak of the COVID-19, which has deeply changed our lives. The 8 papers can be grouped in 4 thematic areas. The first is governance, ethics, and corporate behavior. In this area fall 2 papers, the one of Paris and the one from Madrid. The second area is economy and finance for a sustainable society. In this area fall the 4 Italian papers, Roma, Bergamo, Milano, and Bologna. And the third area is the future of work with the paper of Malta. And the fourth area is social media and Catholic social teaching, the US contribution. The work of the French group is focused on the keys to a new corporate governance in the post-COVID era. The analysis is based on the assumption that is now time for questioning the model of long-term growth and value creation which has dominated in the last decades. It's time to redefine the concept of value creation in a broadest sense, considering its impact on the world. Not only financial requirements, but also the requirements of respect for the environment, respect for human dignity, and respect for society. The role of a manager is precisely to synthesize these different requirements in the mode of governance. But sustainable performance requires, above all, a long-term raison d'être. Once the raison d'être is properly defined, identified, the corporate purpose needs to be defined accordingly. Many contradictory objectives and constraints will arise on the leader's path, and he or she will have to arbitrate constantly, remaining within the chosen raison d'être. In this respect, for a good governance system, it becomes essential to have time for introspection and discernment. And this is in order to reconcile personal conviction with professional choices. The Catholic social teaching may then be considered as a compass particularly appropriate for entrepreneurial choices. The French group identifies specific questions that the business leaders in the introspection process should ask themselves, so that the introspection in this way may become really concrete. Thus, the analysis moves from principles to action. The paper by the Madrid group addresses another crucial issues within the general topic of governance and corporate behavior. That is the need to adapt to the changes that digitization is bringing, and it analyzes specifically the role of companies on how their employees should be trained to achieve a more human digital economy. Work automation is going to make many of the current jobs disappear, and reskilling the labor force is crucial for employers. But how this reskilling should be provided, and how can help our society to achieve a more human digital economy? These are the specific research questions addressed by the Madrid group paper. The paper adds to the more theoretical part Three specific and especially positive examples of how employers have trained their employees. For time reason, I can report here only on just one of them, that of Mafre, which has almost 35,000 employees with more than 90 nationalities and with 4 generations working in the company, and is currently promoting a profound strategic digital transformation. Mafre has launched the Digital Challenge, an initiative where the idea is that different paths are available for the employees and they can choose the one they consider more appropriate and pertinent for their needs. The dignity of the person as a core value that should be present in any interaction between manager and employees is the key element of the initiative. A few words on the conclusion of the paper and which derive from the examples analyzed. First, training programs need to be centered on people as protagonists, and they must be interactive at all levels. Second, technological decisions must be widely explained through training programs. And finally, but probably most importantly, redundancies are in many cases the bad solution, as it is in the company's shareholders, executives, and employees' interest to pursue as a priority the full flourishing of internal capacities for change. The 4 Italian papers fall within the broad area of economy and finance for promoting a more sustainable society. The group of Bergamo has designed the program Say Yes, where YES is an acronym for Youngs for Economy and Society. The program is an itinerary of reflection and of training which has been thought to promote a tangible engagement at local level. A group of an average 45 young people between 25 and 27 years has addressed several issues such as enterprise and work, work and social development, the world of cooperatives, school and education, European and international policy, new economies, building of the civic community, new lifestyles. For each topic, a number of contributions has been identified. For example, as far as enterprises and work, in line with the previous analysis of the Group of Madrid, it is pointed out the need to promote upskilling and reskilling policies to update the background of workers, to avoid obsolescence and marginalization of workers, to develop new competencies, to cover mismatch with the needs of the enterprises. It is also emphasized that the need to facilitate the transition from a linear system, school work, to a circular system, school work again school. As far as school and education, the need to reinvent alternative school work formulas is proposed. The itinerary of the group has been completed at the beginning of this month and is perceived as a sort of starting point. So further results will be generated in the near future. The group of Milan investigated another crucial issue in these difficult times, that is the importance to increase our social cohesion. Social cohesion is much more than the fight against poverty and social exclusion, as it requires shaping solidarity networks within the society, capable inter alia to reinforce our ability to manage diversity, a factor of mutual enrichment. In this respect, the group examined the role of women in the workplace and the gender gap which still persists in our society. The point here is that equality fuels social cohesion, and inequalities have instead a negative impact on social cohesion. Borrowing from a recent paper by our chairwoman, It is emphasized how women probably possess today the best characteristics and the most appropriate values for promoting sustainable development as a result of their sense of responsibility, their competence, and determinations. Companies should foster a corporate culture based on promoting diversity and inclusion. From the analysis of the Group of Milan, clearly emerges that equal opportunities cannot be reached focusing only on labor market and increasing the employment rate of women. More than that is required. It needs to make sure that both men and women can attain the correct balance between work and life, between work and family. The paper addresses a number of further issues, such as the diffusion of women entrepreneurship and the participation of women to companies' boards. The conclusion is that social cohesion is sister of a sustainable economy, so that promoting social cohesion is also a way forward to a more sustainable world. Sustainable finance is the topic addressed also by the paper of the Bologna Group. As it is well known, sustainable finance generally refers to the process of taking due account of environmental, social, and governance (ESG) considerations when making investment decisions in the financial sector, leading to increased long-term investments into sustainable economic activities and projects. As far as sustainable investment, however, terminology is still to be fixed, as we have a number of similar terms which express close and related concepts: ethic finance, socially responsible finance, green finance, impact finance, ESG finance. According to Regulation 2020 number 852 of the European Parliament and of the Council, for the purposes of establishing the degree to which an investment is environmentally sustainable, an economic activity shall qualify as environmentally sustainable when that economic activity contributes substantially to one or more of the following 6 environmental objectives: climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, the sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, the transition to a circular economy, pollution prevention and control, the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystem, and at the same time does not significantly harm any of the environmental objectives. The analysis of the paper is strongly rooted in the principles of social teaching. It is in line with the indication of the economic and pecuniarie questiones document, especially at number 6, where it said it's especially necessary to provide an ethical reflection on certain aspects of financial transaction, which, when operating without the necessary anthropological and moral foundation, have not only produced manifest abuses and injustice, but also demonstrate a capacity to create systemic and worldwide economic crisis. The paper of the Group of Rome analyzes the role of the state as crucial actor in both developing a modern health system and investing in infrastructures. The analysis is mainly focused on the Italian case, but it can be easily generalized to cover also other contexts. In order to design a more just and equal model of society, environmental issues are acquiring increasing importance, and public-private partnerships are becoming fundamental element of development. In order to grant equal opportunities to all citizens, infrastructures such as highways, broadband, schools, university, etc., need to be in government's spotlight. At the same time, it is essential to have a properly financed health system. As far as the latter, the Group of Rome proposed the application of the subsidiarity principle, so that the private entities are called to intervene in any situation in which the state is unable to provide essential services. Finally, the paper elaborates a number of specific proposals based on a pact between citizens and the states, and specifically a government that issues in the form of a perpetual bond, which should go hand in hand with structural reforms. The proposal is rather technical, and I presume it will be presented in more details during the next session. In the paper of the group of Malta, a thorough analysis is presented on how the COVID-19 crisis is going to affect the labor markets worldwide in the longer term. A number of policy suggestions are then put forward for responding to this expected change in the light of the principles of Catholic social doctrine. As we know, the effects of the virus are hitting hard the most vulnerable, with increasing insecurity and anxiety for already struggling segments of society, as, for example, workers in the informal economy, which remain outside the system of social protection and health care, and young people, which face greater difficulty in entering work. And furthermore, their training and education have been disrupted by the pandemic. Inequalities and widespread decent work deficits not only lead to economic inefficiency, they can also undermine social cohesion within countries. The mismatch between labor supply and demand extend far beyond the 188 million unemployed across the world in 2019, as world's labor markets are today characterized by substantial inequalities, including stark geographic disparities in access to decent work. The paper also examines two job-related dynamics that could intensify further as consequence of the pandemic: increased automation and the expanding gig economy. Finally, some policy suggestions for a more human return to a fully operational world are presented, all in the spirit of the principles of Catholic social doctrine. The conclusion is that sound policies that respect these principles, human dignity, the common good, solidarity, and subsidiarities, are good for individuals and reinforce the stability of our economies and societies. Finally, the EOS chapter document is devoted to present a very interesting project to evangelize the Church's social teachings in the digital sphere. The project is based on two building blocks. First, the developing of a specific and informative website. And second, a social media strategy on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to direct users to the website, where in-depth materials and resources are available on Catholic social teaching. The new website, launched in July of 2019, is characterized by a flexible and dynamic architecture, which allows quick updates. The goal has been since the beginning to target Catholic leaders in business, the professions, academia, the arts, and especially young people, in order to show them how Catholic social teaching has answered to their pressing concerns. The strategy was to focus on contemporary issues, such as climate change and COVID-19, to provide an initial spark of interest. As a result of this impressive social media and website project, is that in the 1 year since it was started, there has been greater interest, followers, and outreach than in the preceding 10 years combined. I conclude, the documents prepared for our General Assembly today are a sign of great vitality and creativity, and we should be fully confident as far as the future of our foundation is concerned. The encyclical Laudato Si and now Fratelli Tutti are providing fundamental inspiration for all of us, and both documents are guiding us in the attempt to reshape the world that will arise after the pandemic has passed. The present crisis is an opportunity to start anew and to make sure that the world that arises after the crisis has passed is more sustainable and more just. As we know, everything is connected, And tragically, this health catastrophe has much in common with the ecological catastrophe. Both are global emergencies that will affect many people, both directly and indirectly. Both are experienced most deeply by the poor and vulnerable, and both expose the deep injustice in our societies. Finally, both will be solved only through a united effort that calls on the best of our core values. These line of thought are substantially shared by all documents elaborated by our local groups and clearly reveal that the main messages of Pope Francis' teaching have fully gone through within our community of members group. And this is a very good news. Thank you to you all.